Have you ever wondered why some people seem to wake up energized, focused, and mentally sharp, while others feel exhausted no matter how much they sleep? What if I told you that the answer may not be your age, your schedule, or even your motivation, but tiny microscopic power plants inside your body that determine how much energy you actually have every single day? And what's even more surprising is this. If these systems begin to slow down, you may not only feel tired, but also struggle to lose weight, think clearly, exercise, or even slow down the aging process itself. Today, we're going to uncover one of the most important topics for your health, your brain, and your longevity. How your body truly produces energy, what silently destroys it, and most importantly, what science says you can do to maximize it naturally. Because if there is one thing nearly all of us want more of in life, it's energy. No matter what your goal is, whether it's improving your health, building muscle, staying mentally sharp, succeeding at work, or simply feeling alive again, every biological process inside your body depends on one thing: energy. But here's something most people don't realize. Your body doesn't simply have energy. It must constantly manufacture it second by second through an incredibly sophisticated biological process happening deep inside your cells. And if that process is not working efficiently, no amount of coffee, motivation, or positive thinking will fully fix the problem. Inside almost every cell in your body live tiny structures known as mitochondria. You may have heard of them before, often called the powerhouses of the cell, but that description barely scratches the surface of how important they really are. These microscopic structures are essentially your body's energy factories. They are responsible for producing the fuel that makes all life possible inside you. In fact, scientists believe mitochondria are so unique that they may have originally been bacteria billions of years ago. According to one of the most fascinating theories in biology, these bacteria formed a symbiotic relationship with primitive cells and eventually began living inside them, producing energy in exchange for protection. Over time, this partnership evolved into what we now know as mitochondria, an ancient biological alliance that still keeps you alive every moment of every day. And here's where things get especially interesting. Not all cells in your body need the same amount of energy. Think about it. A muscle cell working during exercise demands far more energy than a cell sitting relatively inactive. Your brain cells, especially neurons, are also incredibly energy hungry because they are constantly processing information, forming thoughts, memories, and emotions. That means the cells that require more energy contain more mitochondria. In simple terms, the harder a tissue works, the more energy factories it needs. Your muscles, your brain, your heart, these tissues rely heavily on healthy mitochondria to function properly. Now imagine what happens if these energy factories begin underperforming. If your mitochondria are less active than normal, even slightly, the effects can show up everywhere in your life. You may feel physically drained after activities that once felt easy. You may struggle to concentrate, stay focused, or maintain mental clarity. Exercise may feel unusually difficult. Even motivation can suffer, not because you're lazy, but because your body simply doesn't have the biological fuel necessary to perform at its best. And there's another hidden consequence many people never suspect. When your energy production becomes less efficient, your body may also become more likely to gain weight. Why? Because if your cells are not efficiently converting food into usable energy, more of that energy can end up being stored rather than used. Two people can eat very similar meals, but their bodies may process that fuel very differently depending on how effectively their mitochondria are functioning. This is one reason why some people feel constantly fatigued and struggle with metabolism despite trying hard to improve their health. It isn't always about willpower. Sometimes the problem exists much deeper at the cellular level. But there's good news. Modern science now allows us to better understand mitochondrial function than ever before. Researchers can measure aspects of metabolic activity and energy production, helping us objectively evaluate how efficiently the body is generating energy. And perhaps even more importantly, we now know there are several powerful ways to improve mitochondrial performance and potentially increase your energy naturally. But before we talk about solutions, we need to understand one critical principle, because increasing energy production inside your body follows the same biological logic as improving almost any system in health. There are three essential things your body needs if you want it to generate energy efficiently. First, your body must have the right raw materials. Without proper fuel, energy production simply cannot happen. Second, your energy factories, the mitochondria themselves, must be functioning properly. Even the best fuel in the world won't help if the machinery responsible for processing it is damaged or underperforming. And third, your body needs the right stimulation to actually increase energy production. In other words, your system must be given a reason to adapt. These three principles are simple, but incredibly powerful. And once you understand them, you begin to see why so many people feel chronically low in energy despite trying countless supplements, diets, or quick fixes. So let's start with the very foundation of energy production. The raw materials your body depends on every single day, because what fuels your cells may be dramatically influencing how energized or exhausted you feel. To truly understand energy, we first need to understand fuel. Because your body's remarkably intelligent, it can only produce energy from the materials you give it. And if those materials are missing, imbalanced, or poorly utilized, your energy levels may quietly suffer in ways you never expected. At the most basic level, your body creates energy from the macronutrients you consume through food. These are the nutrients you eat in the largest amounts: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. But when it comes to producing usable energy, your body relies primarily on two major fuel systems. The first comes from sugars, mainly derived from carbohydrates. Whenever you eat foods rich in carbohydrates, your body breaks them down into glucose, a type of sugar that serves as one of the body's primary energy sources. The second comes from fats, but in a very specific form called ketone bodies. These are molecules produced when your body begins using fat for fuel instead of relying heavily on sugar. Ketones can come either from the fat you eat or from the fat your body has already stored, especially during periods of fasting or low carbohydrate intake. And this is where things become especially fascinating. Among these ketones, one in particular called beta-hydroxybutyrate appears to be exceptionally efficient at producing energy. In some tissues, especially the brain, the heart, and even reproductive organs, ketones may provide a highly efficient fuel source compared to glucose under certain conditions. However, this does not mean carbohydrates are bad or unnecessary. In reality, most of the ATP your body produces, the actual energy currency your cells use, every second is still generated from glucose through an extraordinarily complex process known as oxidative phosphorylation. Now, don't let the scientific name intimidate you, because while the process sounds complicated, the core idea is surprisingly simple. Imagine your mitochondria like tiny rechargeable batteries. To create energy, they depend on something very similar to an electrical charge. In fact, energy production inside mitochondria requires an electrical gradient, a difference in charge between two sides, almost like the positive and negative ends of a battery. Why does this matter? Because your body literally depends on microscopic electrical movement to keep you alive. Inside the mitochondria, tiny particles called electrons move through what scientists call the electron transport chain. Think of it like an energy highway. As electrons move from one place to another, energy is released and eventually converted into ATP, the rapid use energy molecule your body depends on for nearly everything. Every heartbeat, every thought, every movement, every breath, every muscle contraction, none of it happens without ATP. And one of the most overlooked truths about human energy is this: the more efficiently your mitochondria move these electrons, the better your body becomes at producing energy. But there's another critical ingredient that often goes unnoticed: oxygen. Your mitochondria can technically produce energy with or without oxygen, but the difference is massive. Without oxygen, your body creates only a very small amount of ATP from glucose. This is what happens during quick bursts of intense activity when oxygen delivery can't keep up fast enough. But when oxygen is available, your mitochondria become dramatically more efficient, producing far more energy from the exact same amount of fuel. To put this into perspective, one glucose molecule may produce only around 2 ATP molecules in oxygen-poor conditions. But roughly 36 ATP molecules when oxygen is available, that's an enormous difference. Almost 18 times more energy generated from the same fuel source. Think about what that means for a moment. Your body's energy system isn't just about what you eat. It's also about how efficiently your body uses oxygen, how healthy your mitochondria are, and how effectively your cells convert nutrients into usable fuel. In simple terms, your body can produce energy using glucose, ketone bodies, and fats. But all of this works best when your system has sufficient oxygen and healthy mitochondrial function. This is why the first major step toward increasing your energy is making sure your cells actually receive the right raw materials in the right amounts. But fuel alone is not enough. Imagine pouring premium gasoline into a car with a damaged engine. The quality of the fuel won't matter if the machinery responsible for converting it into performance isn't working correctly. And this brings us to the second major piece of the puzzle, helping your mitochondria function at their highest level. Because even healthy mitochondria require support. They rely on specific nutrients and biological helpers known as cofactors, special compounds that allow energy production to happen efficiently. One of the most important of these is something you've probably heard about before, coenzyme Q10. You may recognize it from skincare products or anti-aging advertisements, but inside your body, CoQ10 plays a far more important role than most people realize. It is absolutely central to mitochondrial energy production because it helps move electrons through that energy highway we discussed earlier. Without enough of it, the process becomes less efficient. And here's something many people don't know. Although your body can produce CoQ10 naturally, your ability to make it gradually declines as you age. This means older adults or people dealing with chronic illness may not produce enough to fully support optimal mitochondrial performance. But CoQ10 does more than support energy. It also acts as a powerful antioxidant, helping protect your cells from oxidative stress, one of the silent biological processes linked to aging, cardiovascular disease, and cellular damage. In other words, supporting mitochondrial function may not only improve energy levels, it may also influence how gracefully your body ages over time. And CoQ10 is only the beginning, because one of the most powerful molecules involved in energy production may also play a surprising role in longevity itself. Scientists have become increasingly interested in it because of its connection to cellular repair, energy, metabolism, and even the aging process. Its name is NAD, and what researchers are learning about it may completely change how we think about energy and healthy aging. If there is one molecule that has quietly become one of the most talked about topics in modern longevity science, it's NAD. You may not have heard much about it yet, but inside your body, this molecule plays an absolutely essential role in how much energy your cells can produce and potentially even how well you age. NAD, short for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, is one of the key molecules required for ATP production. Without enough of it, the machinery responsible for converting nutrients into usable cellular energy simply cannot function efficiently. In simple terms, if mitochondria are your energy factories, NAD is one of the critical workers helping those factories operate smoothly. But here's where things become concerning. As we grow older, our natural NAD levels tend to decline. And this decline may contribute to many of the problems people commonly associate with aging. Lower energy, slower recovery, mental fatigue, reduced physical performance, and decreased metabolic efficiency. Many people assume feeling constantly tired is just a normal part of getting older. But what if part of that exhaustion is happening because the systems responsible for producing energy are gradually becoming less efficient? Researchers are especially interested in NAD because it does much more than support energy production. It also interacts with important proteins involved in cellular maintenance and aging, often called sirtuins. These proteins help regulate how cells repair themselves, respond to stress, and maintain healthy function over time. In other words, healthy NAD levels may support two incredibly important goals at once: producing more energy today while potentially supporting healthier aging tomorrow. Now, before this starts sounding like science fiction, let's keep things grounded in reality. The body can still produce NAD naturally, but since production tends to decline over time, scientists have explored ways to support it through compounds known as NAD precursors. These are substances your body can convert into NAD. One of the most commonly discussed examples is nicotinamide riboside, often abbreviated as NR. It belongs to the vitamin B3 family and has gained attention because of its potential role in supporting cellular energy production. Some people use it as a supplement in an effort to support energy, metabolic health, or healthy aging. In certain medical and wellness settings, intravenous NAD therapies have also become increasingly popular, although research continues regarding who benefits most and under what circumstances. But here's something important to remember. No supplement can compensate for a body that lacks the basic foundations of health. The most powerful improvements in energy almost always come from fixing the underlying system, not chasing shortcuts. And this brings us to another fascinating compound involved in energy production, L-carnitine. L-carnitine is an amino acid-like compound with an extremely interesting job inside the body. Think of it as a transportation system. Its role is to help carry fats into your mitochondria, where those fats can be burned and converted into energy. Why does this matter? Because if fat can't efficiently reach the mitochondria, your body becomes less effective at using it as fuel. This means L-carnitine may provide something of a double benefit. On one hand, it helps deliver raw material to the very place where ATP is produced. On the other hand, it may help your body become more efficient at using stored fat for energy. That's one reason it's frequently discussed in sports performance and weight management conversations. Athletes involved in endurance sports, people who need sustained energy for long periods, often pay special attention to efficient fat metabolism. Unlike sugar, which burns relatively quickly, fat can provide a longer lasting energy source when the body becomes skilled at using it effectively. And if you think about it, this makes perfect biological sense. Your body evolved to survive periods without constant access to food. It developed sophisticated systems to store energy and later convert those reserves into fuel when necessary. In many ways, improving metabolic flexibility, your body's ability to efficiently switch between fuel sources, can be incredibly valuable for sustained energy. But there's another important player in this story that most people have never heard of. It's something called AMPK. Now, the name sounds technical, but the idea behind it is surprisingly easy to understand. Think of AMPK as your body's internal energy sensor. It helps determine when your cells need to generate more energy and adapt to increased demands. When activated, AMPK can signal the body to improve energy efficiency, support metabolic health, and encourage healthier mitochondrial activity. Interestingly, certain nutrients appear to support this system. Omega-3 fatty acids and zinc, for example, may influence AMPK activity to some degree. Researchers have also explored plant-derived compounds that may interact with these energy-regulating pathways. But before we get carried away with supplements and biochemical details, we need to talk about something much more powerful and much more important. Because after giving your body the right fuel and supporting the machinery responsible for energy production, there is still one essential ingredient missing: a reason for your body to adapt. And this is where most people misunderstand energy completely. Your body is biologically designed to conserve energy whenever possible. In fact, if your brain had its way, it would often prefer comfort over effort. Why? Because throughout human history, conserving energy improved survival. Calories were scarce. Movement required effort. Rest increased the chances of survival during difficult conditions. In many ways, your body is still operating according to ancient survival rules, even though modern life has completely changed. Which means something fascinating happens when you intentionally challenge your body. When physical stress is introduced in the right amount, your body begins adapting. It upgrades its systems. It improves efficiency. And perhaps most importantly, it increases its ability to produce energy. So what is the most powerful stimulus for mitochondrial growth and ATP production? The answer is probably simpler than you think. Exercise. But not all exercise affects your energy systems in the same way. And what researchers have discovered about the types of movement that most strongly influence mitochondrial health may completely change how you think about fitness. Most people think of exercise as something you do to burn calories, lose weight, or improve your appearance. But what if one of its most important benefits has nothing to do with how you look and everything to do with how much energy your body can actually produce? Because when it comes to mitochondria, exercise is not simply movement. It is a signal, a biological message telling your body that the current level of energy production is no longer enough, and your body responds. Remember this principle. Your brain and body are naturally programmed to conserve energy whenever possible. From an evolutionary perspective, this made perfect sense. For thousands of years, humans survived by avoiding unnecessary exertion. Wasting energy could mean not surviving periods of scarcity. But modern life has changed dramatically. Today, many people spend long hours sitting, moving very little, and rarely challenging their bodies physically. The problem is that your biology still responds to demand. If you stop demanding energy, your body slowly reduces its capacity to produce it. In simple terms, if your body has no reason to create more energy, it often won't. This is exactly why intentional physical stress matters. When done correctly, exercise forces your body to adapt. It sends a signal to your muscles, heart, and mitochondria that greater energy production is necessary. Over time, this adaptation can improve both the number and efficiency of mitochondria throughout the body. And according to research, 2 specific types of exercise appear especially powerful for supporting mitochondrial health. The first is interval training, often called high-intensity interval exercise. This involves short bursts of intense effort, followed by brief recovery periods. For example, pushing yourself very hard for 30 seconds to a minute, then resting briefly before repeating the cycle several times. Why does this work so well? Because intense physical effort creates an enormous demand for energy. Your body suddenly realizes it must adapt to survive these repeated bursts of stress. As a result, mitochondria become more active, and over time, the body may even increase mitochondrial density in certain tissues. The second highly effective approach is endurance-based cardiovascular exercise. This type of movement includes longer duration activities such as brisk walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, or sustained aerobic training. And there's an important biological principle behind why endurance training works. The more a muscle is consistently used, the more mitochondria it tends to develop. Think about it logically. If one muscle is repeatedly forced to perform for long periods, your body eventually responds by improving its energy-producing capacity in that specific area. More demand creates more adaptation. This is one reason endurance athletes often develop extraordinary metabolic efficiency. Their bodies gradually become better at generating sustained energy. Nature offers a fascinating example of this principle. Birds that migrate thousands of miles every year have significantly more mitochondria in the muscles responsible for flight compared to animals that rarely move long distances. Chickens, for example, use their flight muscles very little and therefore have dramatically lower mitochondrial density in those tissues. Your body works the same way. Use a muscle consistently and your biology adapts. Ignore it, and your body has little reason to maintain high energy producing capacity there. But here's where things become even more interesting. Until now, we've focused on helping mitochondria work better. But what if we could also influence how many mitochondria your body has in the first place? Because more mitochondria can mean more energy production, better metabolic health, greater resilience, improved exercise performance, and potentially even healthier aging. So, what controls the creation of new mitochondria? Scientists have identified an incredibly important regulator, often referred to as PGC1 alpha. Don't worry about memorizing the name. What matters is understanding what it does. Think of PGC1 alpha as a master switch for mitochondrial health. It helps regulate the production of new mitochondria, supports their maintenance, and influences how effectively they function over time. In many ways, this system acts like a manager overseeing your body's energy factories. If this pathway is functioning well, your body becomes better at building and maintaining healthy mitochondria. If it becomes disrupted, energy production may decline. And unfortunately, several common modern lifestyle factors can interfere with this process. One major problem is oxidative stress. You probably heard the term before, but here's a simple explanation. Oxidative stress occurs when damaging molecules, often called free radicals, accumulate faster than your body can neutralize them. When oxidative stress increases, mitochondrial function can suffer, cellular damage may increase, and the systems responsible for producing energy may become less efficient over time. But perhaps one of the biggest hidden enemies of mitochondrial health is something millions of people are dealing with without fully realizing it. Insulin resistance. This condition develops gradually, often after years of repeated blood sugar spikes and chronically elevated insulin levels. Over time, the body becomes less responsive to insulin, making it harder to regulate blood sugar effectively. And this doesn't just affect metabolism or weight.